Thank you, Tim, and good afternoon. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, please keep eating. But I want to talk a little bit about, in my role as the Chief Academic Officer at the university, a little bit about my vision and how it fits in, or my view of how it fits in with the WT125 that we're kicking off today. You're going to hear a lot of things this afternoon about goals and strategies and moving forward and generational planning and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, the heart of what we do at this university is to educate students. And my training, for those of you who don't know, is in history, so I'm going to give you a very brief history lesson. More than 100 years ago, there were some people living in this part of the country who had a vision. They wanted to create a society here, and they wanted to properly educate their children. So they knew that they needed to be able to graduate teachers who could be the teachers of their children, and they could bring that culture to the Panhandle. So they created this university. It took vision, it took planning, it took organization to create that. We started as a normal college. We started as a school that trained teachers to go into the area and educate the young people of the Panhandle. A few years later, they realized, those same people and their children realized, that they needed nurses and they needed health care in this area, so they added a nursing program to the university. Agriculture was obviously very important to them. So again, with vision and forethought about what are the needs of the people of this region, we added an agricultural program that's now thriving on our campus. Over the years, we've added more and more programs to serve the needs of the people of this region, and today we have 60 undergraduate programs and 40 graduate programs. We've added advanced programs to help meet the needs of this region. A few years ago, we added engineering because we perceived that it was a need for the region to have high-quality, locally trained engineers. Now we're moving forward with advanced programs in education to again serve the needs of the region. So for more than 100 years, this institution and the people who have supported it, whether they were associated with the university or whether they were from the community, had this vision that they were placed here to serve the needs of the people of the Panhandle. And we need to continue that legacy that's been handed to us. All of us, and certainly me personally, are the beneficiaries of the decisions that were made a long time ago to create this university and to expand and grow this university to what it's become today. Now we have a very great opportunity, a rare opportunity, a luxury, to look far into the future and try to create an even stronger, even more responsive university for the people of this region and beyond. It's really easy in this day and age of accountability to get focused on the here and now and to really go through what's going to happen this week, what's going to happen this semester, maybe what's going to happen next year. This planning opportunity gives us the chance to look well into the future and a generation into the future and to start planning for a legacy that we're going to leave to the people who are coming behind us. So it's just a unique thing to do, to have an opportunity to bring together a diverse group of people like the people who are in this room, who come from the community, who come from the student body, who come from faculty, from staff, people who have been here for a few weeks. We have one gentleman whose first day as an employee is today, to people who have been here for a really long time like me. I see some other faces here from what I'm going to start calling the 20th Century Club, those of us who joined the university before 2000, and we're dwindling in numbers. To bring all those people together and to say, what should this university look like in 15 or 20 years? Who should we be serving then? What kinds of academic degree programs do we need to be thinking about now so that we can set in motion them and have them in place when they need to be here? Because of those people who came before us, because they fought for this school, because they supported this school, because they realized that this school needed to serve the region, it's thrived and it's grown, and I think it would be a real shame if we did not continue that legacy. So on the one hand, it's a luxury. On the other hand, it's a burden that's been given to us to make sure that we leave this place better than when we came here. And academically, that means making sure that the programs we have are aligned with the needs of the region and of other similarly situated regions around the country. You'll hear from Dr. Windler later about a focus on rural areas and a focus on serving people who live in communities and areas that look a lot like ours. And they are all over the globe, all over the country and all over the globe. So we can do something here that has national, regional, national, and international implications, and that's pretty exciting. So I wanted just to say again, from an academic point of view, a focus on what degrees we offer and the ways in which we offer those degrees. Education has changed tremendously in the 20 or 25 years that I've been associated with higher education. Dr. Matney and others have seen that change happen as well. The way that we teach, the tools that we use to teach, the nature of the students who are in our classes has all changed. We need to be responsive to that, and we need to make sure that we're looking down the road and preparing for what lies ahead. To talk more about the role that faculty play in all of this and how this will influence faculty, I'd like to introduce another member of the steering committee, Dr. Diarno Diarmid, at this time. Thank you for your time, and appreciate it.
I do not have a history lesson for you at all. Like many of you in this room, faculty, we make up a huge chunk of the WT125 effort. I was asked to serve, and like many of you, I was reluctant. And that's just being honest. I was reluctant not because I didn't want to serve. I have a lot of other things that I'm serving and doing. And the one thing that I've learned in this process, the very first part of this process, is that I'm not unique and I'm not alone. The people in this room, and I'll broaden that out, it's not just faculty. It's our staff, it's our students, it's our service people from outside this university, our constituents, that base, all serve and all give so much. But then I started thinking, and I thought, you know, WT is my home. As Dr. Schaefer just said, you know, it was those individuals years and years ago that wanted to make things better. Before I went on to earn my doctorate, I have 2 degrees from WT, and I'm very proud of those. Recently, I was at the kitchen table. I broke the diploma of my master's, or my wife's master's degree that she also earned at WT. She has 2 degrees from WT as well. And I broke her frame. I was moving it. We'd recently moved, and she was kind of ragging on me about, you know, she spent a lot of time finding that frame and all that, and broke it. And my daughter walks up to the kitchen table, and I'm repairing it. She said, "Wow, Dad." And she's looking at it. She said, "You and Mom both graduated back in the 1900s. And I thought, well, in a way, she's right. And I started thinking about that, and I started thinking that, you know, this process is really like footprints in the sand. You know, we're all kind of walking together down the beach, and it's nice when you turn around and you look, and you see, wow, look where we've been. And you can turn back around and you can say, look where we're going. Yesterday afternoon, I had an opportunity to visit with one of my colleagues, Dr. Jonathan Schaefer, who's here. Dr. Schaefer is an expert in management and leadership, and I just told him, I said, you know, this is the process we're going through and that kind of thing. And I said, what would you, if you were a faculty member or someone else sitting in this audience, what would you want to hear? What value can I bring in this 5 minutes or whatever that Dr. Windler wants me to speak? And Jonathan looked at me and he said, you know, the reason we do management, the reason we form teams is because not any one person has all the answers. And I thought, wow, it was just a profound thing that he said at that moment in time. Dr. Windler doesn't have all the answers. Dr. Schaefer, our provost, doesn't have all the answers. Blake Decker, the guy that has a lot of data, doesn't have all the answers, right? We form these teams because collectively we can find solutions that individually we may not have been able to come to. My role on this steering committee is to represent faculty, but I also feel like I represent more than that. I feel like I represent the heart of WT in this. There's going to be issues that are going to come up. Part of the steering committee's job is we're going to deal with those issues and we're going to try to make decisions. I'm going to work hard to work with Faculty Senate, President Bill Ambrose of Faculty Senate. I'm going to work with them to make sure they're in the loop, get input, and bring that back to the committee and make sure that they're in the loop and that promulgates out through the rest of the faculty. But I think that's an important facet of what we're doing. And I think that this process has been something that's so organic. It's huge. I mean, look at just the people in this room. It's amazing to me. but it's been one of the most organic, genuine processes I've been a part of. Dr. Wendler will talk about it. There were many, many names. And it wasn't to preclude anyone. That was not the goal here. People are welcome. But the idea was that you've all been selected for different reasons, and it's that idea that together we really can make a better whole than we are just in the parts that we all represent. And I think that's the spirit of it, and I believe that in my heart, and I think that will help us in the future to, make this an even better process and something that one day when we look back on and we see those footprints in the sand that we're all proud of. I have a unique opportunity today. When I think about the service that we provide, all of us in this room provide, I have a nice, wonderful opportunity to introduce Don Powell today. And if you don't know Mr. Powell, which many of you may not have grown up here, you may not know, Mr. Powell has been one of the leading businessmen, philanthropists. He served as the chairman of the FDIC, was appointed by President Bush, served on that until there was a hurricane. And then he was asked to run a hurricane task force to kind of help clean things up. He's traditionally a banker by nature, but he's just a good all-around person. He's been chairman of the Board of Regents of Texas A&M. Oh, and guess what? The thing that I don't have a lot of things in common with Mr. Powell, but you know what I do have in common? He also earned his degree at WT, one of them at least, back in the 1900s. So let's give it up for Mr. Don Powell and welcome him.
One of the benefits of being old, maybe the oldest guy in the room, is that people have short-term memories. So also, I don't think there's anybody in this room that was on the faculty when I was going to school here. Hallelujah. So I can say whatever I want to say about my academic education, but I'm a very proud graduate of West Texas. A very, very proud graduate of West Texas. I take a lot of pride when I circulate among communities or in people's office, and I look and walk into their office and I see hanging on the wall their diploma, whether it's in the 1900s or 2005 or 2012, graduate of West Texas State. I've been involved in economic development all my adult life. And I've listened to people talk about what they want in communities, what distinguishes a community. Why do people put a plant, why does Sherman-Williams put a plant in Monroe, Louisiana versus Amarillo, Texas, or Dallas, Texas, or why does Boeing put a plant in South Carolina? And we think about lots of things from weather, we think about the people, but the quality of life issues are really the thing that distinguishes. And without the quality of life issues, in my view, one's faith is primarily the most important thing, but right below the faith proposition is education. Education speaks to all of the ills of our society, the criminal justice, healthcare, all the problems that the community, wherever you may come from, education speaks to that. So no community will thrive without a vibrant education system. And the hub of higher education for our part of Texas is West Texas A&M. So I applaud each of you for spending your time, your commitment, your energy toward this very, very important thing. We've got the leadership in place. Not necessarily, I'm not talking about the administration. I'm talking about the faculty. I'm talking about the staff. I'm talking about everything. What I've learned in my years that faculty really are the key. Pardon me, Dr. Wendler, but faculty is the key to any institution. They are where the rubber meets the road. So we have a great faculty. We have great administration. We have great staff that will take us to the next level. So your thoughts, your energy, your commitment, your engagement is critical to the future of this institution. It's critical. So thank you, Dr. Wendler, for allowing me to participate.
all of those gentlemen were mercifully brief. Not me. No, I will be. We're going to move fast. First, I appreciate these perspectives that have been shared on the process that we're engaging. They're important, and every one of them has insight and value in coloring the work that we're going to start now that we'll finish in the next 9 or 10 months. And this is a very important job. And I sometimes refer to this committee as the mother of all committees. I now see why. This is a huge committee. And I do appreciate the individual contributions that all of you will make to this process as we work through it and come to conclusions and contribute ideas about what it is that will make West Texas A&M University even a better university in service to students. That's our goal. When we serve students well, we'll serve the Panhandle well. When we serve the Panhandle well, we'll serve the state well. And so it goes. And I really am thankful that all of you have committed to the time that it will take to do this. This morning, or this afternoon rather, everybody has a notebook at their place, and that notebook has in it a flash drive, and the flash drive, in a sense, is the child of the notebook. The flash drive has everything in it that the notebook has. That's just if you want to load it onto your computer or something, and maybe cut and paste things out of there, who knows what, but you're free to do it as you see fit. I will say that the steering committee over the course of the summer has assembled this package of information in an effort to make what we're going to start here in the next 40 or 45 minutes, this planning process, to put some a framework, scaffolding around the process so that you don't have to expend a lot of energy thinking about the process or what to do next, but there's a system, a way of doing this that I know will work, and you'll be able to engage the meat of the discussion very quickly as the process starts. And I want to be responsive to your time and the time commitments that all of you have. Everybody in this room, at least the people that work at the university, already have a full-time job. And I understand and appreciate that. And many of the people from outside of the university have a full-time job. And doing what they're going to do here for the next 9 months in pulses of engagement and interaction is going to be on top of that. And we really do appreciate it. And also, I will share the sentiments of everybody that's spoken. The importance of this process in helping move the university forward cannot be overstated. It will give us a view to the future. And here's what I can tell you. When we finish this, the kind of the deeply interactive part of this, by late spring, we'll produce a plan eventually, some sort of a document that, in a sense, crystallizes the thought processes that we've had and the key ideas and goals and strategies and so on. That will all be there. We'll do that. And we'll do that reasonably well. But the bottom line is that has to carry forward into the future if we're going to be successful. And when we get through that process, I'm hoping that all of you say, gosh, this has been worthwhile. It's been enjoyable. I see my contribution in this document, and I'm having a part in plotting out the future of this great university. And all of that is built on one action at a time over a long period of time, an epic, a century now, over a century, one decision at a time, inch by inch, this huge mass moves forward. And Giorno refers to it as an organic process, and it is. And that's what makes it healthy. That's what gives it life. And I appreciate very much you all being here. You've all put your names on the cards and everything. When you get into smaller groups here in a little while, I'll ask you to, I'm not going to be there in each of the groups, but I would ask you to introduce yourselves again and begin to start to know each other and talk about ideas. That's what we want. We want a thorough discussion of ideas. This 125 is what I call a generational plan. It's a plan that looks ahead approximately a generation, 15 to 20 years. And it will define what West Texas A&M should look like in the year 2035. And I can tell you this, the day the plan is printed, it will be out of date because things keep changing. I am not foolish enough, nor are any of you, to assume that we can predict what's going to happen or what things will be like in 2035. But we can identify key actions and key ideas that will help us move the university to a desirable place some 20 years from now, in round numbers. And that's what makes this a generational plan. Whoop. It will provide a vision that will lead to, and by the way, all of this information is in that your book. You don't have to follow around. You don't need to take notes. I'll not add anything of substance to what's in the book other than maybe a few little anecdotes and points of view. But this generational plan will create a vision. It will come from the various realities of WT that exist right now. What's our mission, our environment, our history, which, if you don't think history is important, all you have to do is listen to Wade Schaefer talk for a few minutes, and he makes history come alive as it shapes things in the future. And that's exactly why history is so important. And it gives insight that is not available in any other way. I've been watching, as some of you others may have been, this Vietnam War series on Channel 3, locally here, PBS, Ken Burns series. And it is powerful to look at that, especially having been there when a lot of the tracks and the roads were laid on what happened there, and seeing that and seeing it now in retrospect and trying to understand the differences between where I thought I was then and where I think I am now, and it's all over the place. But there are some fundamental values, and that's what we're going to find out in this process. And we will get a generational plan. Let me say just briefly that the primary goal for the WT125 is move us from the Carnegie classification of a master's comprehensive university into the status of a doctoral university. And for doctoral status, that means that we need to generate approximately 20 degrees per year on a consistent basis, 20 doctoral degrees per year. And that's going to be our goal with this. I was approached or confronted or presented with this goal when I interviewed for the job. It was deemed by the search committee and the faculty that participated in that to be an important part of the future of WT. I took that very seriously. In a sense, that's why we're here today. Those goals and aspirations were reinforced by Chancellor John Sharp, and he told me how important he thought it was, that this was a logical next step for WT, and it would improve and expand our service to students and our service to the Panhandle. And I own that. I own it. I bought it, hook, line, and sinker. Just for your own edification, there are, these are where students are enrolled. Doctoral institutions make up well less than 10% of the institutions. There's nearly 5,000 institutions in the United States, and they enroll the second largest number of students after community colleges. Within the doctoral classification, there are 3 subclassifications: high producers of research, medium producers of research, and then moderate producers of research. It's that moderate level, I'll call it the entry-level doctoral university. That's where we intend to be in 15 years, hopefully before that. What's interesting to me is that 31% of the students enrolled in universities, or actually in post-secondary education in the United States, are enrolled in doctoral institutions. And let me see this next slide. Oh, good. But only 7.2% of the universities that these 31% of the students are enrolled in, The message there is that the doctoral universities, the Texas A&Ms, the universities of Texas, the Texas Techs, the universities of Houston, the University of North Texas, just using local examples, Oklahoma State, University of Oklahoma, these institutions, while they're only 7% of the population, swallow up a huge number of students. It may be history, it may be tradition, it may be D1 athletics, it may be the appearance that there's some really special value in being associated with one of these institutions. And all of those things have some truth in them. But what we have right here at West Texas A&M University, provided by dedicated students, insightful and forward-looking faculty, a staff that's committed to doing a good job every day, and leadership that wants the university to improve, what we have right here can provide a hugely important and vital foundation for the future lives of our students. But we need to be attentive to it. And as we move through all this, we are going to be attentive to it. The classification is one thing, but we cannot undervalue the importance of dealing with students one at a time, and that is such a strong part of the culture here that I really do value it. I was asked not long ago, everybody knows we've passed this 10,000 mark in enrollment, and I wanted to downplay it a little bit, because if it dropped one student next year, that'd, somebody say, well, we brought Wendler here, now that thing is going through the floor, we're down, our enrollment is down. So I wanted to downplay it a little bit, just to kind of lower expectations just a tad. And I told the city council in Amarillo, I went to just share a few minutes with them about WT, and I got asked about this, and I said, look, whether we have 10,001 students or 9,999 students, every one of those students are important, and it's our job to pay attention to them one student at a time. And we all do that on campus. And the other part of this group that's here today, people from off campus that have a passion for WT and want to see it improve into the future, they recognize that or they wouldn't be here, one student at a time. And we're going to stay true to that mission as we move forward. And I know it moves my heart to see that on a daily basis. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm moved by it when I see faculty members that are paying attention to students and talking with them. Somebody told me they couldn't come to a meeting. I actually think they couldn't come to my inauguration because they had a class to teach. I said, good, you've got the priorities right. Inaugurating me, that's one thing, but teaching the class, that's totally another thing, and it's the real essence of what we do. And he apologized for it. I said, don't apologize for doing the right thing. If I found out that you were let your class go to come to my inauguration, I wouldn't be happy with that. So I say that sort of commitment is exceedingly important. We're going to grow our enrollment, hopefully, at WT, but we're going to do it while we maintain a commitment to freshman students and then grow our upper division students through transfers, our master's students through improving graduate programs, and our doctoral students through new programs that we're beginning to offer and frame up now. We've got a couple underway. There'll be some more. What this chart actually indicates is not program growth, but formula funding weighted formula funding from the state of Texas for students who are in the first 2 years. We average, and it's a weighted average, $1.50 for each of the credit hours that we produce. The state of Texas gives us $1.50 back. At the upper division, we get $2.12. At the master's level, we get $4, and then at the doctoral level, we get over almost $14. The point of this is that we're not funded the same way for every student credit hour that gets generated. And we're funded the most for the areas that are the most income or the most resource consumptive areas, like graduate programs. And the lower division courses that don't cost as much, we don't get funded as much. We are going to pay attention to this formula as we build new programs. Especially, you've seen the slide, the growth of doctoral universities is absorbing so many freshmen. There are other students, though. On the way in here, I bumped into a student, and He introduced himself, and I said, what program are you in? I can't remember what he said. I said, how far along are you? He said, I'm a freshman. I'm a month into it. I said, holy smokes, this guy was older than I was. He was almost as old as Don Powell. And I'm not kidding. I think Don left. Don might have stepped out. But the point is, he's a non-traditional student, and more of our students are going to look like this gentleman looked. They're not going to look like we looked at Texas A&M when I was there in 1970, and we all looked essentially the same. Their ethnicity, their work lives, their family lives, everything is changing. And we're going to be a more responsive university. We're still going to attend to these native freshmen that allow this campus to have the life that it has for a residential experience and all that. We're going to attend to those people, but we're going to see numbers grow with upper division and master's students. The thought process for this plan is built on four things. We need to understand what we are now. We need to understand our history, the environment that we exist in. We've been talking about that a little bit. And the visions, the fourth part, that's what we're in the process of creating now. A new set of visions for the future, or a fresh set of visions for the future. The present configuration, I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. I want you guys to get to work is what I want to do. I want people to start talking to each other about these various areas of interest. But the present configuration and the history, the environment, the visions, these are the things that will help shape our future. You can't understand where we need to go unless you understand where we are and where we have been. Wade talked about the start, the birth of this place as a normal school, and think about the genesis of what Wade just said. He said that the genesis was that the people in the Panhandle, in this part of the world, wanted more educational opportunity for their offspring, and the way to do that was to do that and produce teachers, and that's exactly what they did. The planning principles, they're in your book. I'm not going to go through all those, but you read them. I think some of them are interesting and will give you some insight about what we're trying to undertake here and how we want to get there. We have 6 committees. The steering committee is the group that put kind of this framework together to get us started. We have an academic advisory council, which will include the president's cabinet. We have an executive advisory committee that Mr. Powell and I will co-chair. The WT Foundation board will be engaged, and then there's the leadership council, which are the 5 key leaders from each of the theme groups that you'll start to meet this afternoon. We've already met, talked a little bit about the roles and expectations, so when you get to the theme group meeting here in a half hour or less, you will, they know, in a sense, what their jobs are, and you'll be able to move right along, and I think that's going to be very valuable to be appreciative of your time. And these are those committees that I've just gone over. Okay. On each theme group, just so that you're aware of this, there'll be 2 co-chairs, one from on campus, one from off campus. There'll be a facilitator, and as you can see, they'll make sure that people are kept apprised of what's going on, organize meetings, and so on. There'll be a resource person to find information in response to queries from the group. And then there'll be an off-campus liaison who will try to work to communicate what we're doing with WT125 to the larger community. And I think everybody will do that, but I wanted those roles identified as a way into the process. And then there's all of us, and all of us are part of those subdivisions that have just been mentioned. The 10 theme groups, the theme group assignments list is in your book. Just out of curiosity, if you haven't seen, and you can look when you're done with this because you're going to need to know where to go, and that will tell you where you're supposed to be. And if you get in that group and you say, what in the world am I doing here? Just accept that as a challenge, because some of you will say that. You won't know why you're there. And here's what we do in universities, and I think that Diarno or Neil Terry, the Dean of Business, people that understand organizational behavior would tell you this is true. If I gather the same group of people together week after week and ask them questions, before long, I'm able to predict the answers. Everybody stakes out a framework. They fence in territory that's theirs, and the answers always fall within the various corrals that have been built by these people through their experience and so on. And the fact of the matter, that becomes not very interesting. What is interesting, when you put together a group of people that maybe in some cases, you'll never have met some of these people. They all share one thing in common. That thing is they want to see WT excel. That's tremendously important. And you all will contribute to that in ways that you cannot yet identify. And that's the value, I think, of mixing up these theme groups and the people that are associated with them. In each theme group, like the Panhandle and its heart, we're going to look at certain issues, outreach to the schools, strong partnerships, the importance of basic programs, all of these kinds of things that will be in many committees may look at that. Another thing you'll find in the theme groups, that you may sense that you're going to overlap with another theme group's work. That's fine. There's no problem with that at all. You're going to look at it from a different perspective. Our relationship to community colleges, anybody that's heard me speak since the day I got here, our relationship to community colleges is central to the future of West Texas A&M University. And that's not just because I say so. It's because that's the trend in the nation. It's the one way to reduce costs that individuals and families have in hand. We'll look at undergraduate academics. Our university, WT, can never be better than the core undergraduate programs and the excellence in the arts, humanities, the basic sciences. Those things are critical for every student, and the committee will look at a number of things related to that. The graduate academics, this is important because we're going to be developing new graduate programs, and what these are going to look like and how they'll be configured will be critical to the future of the university. Our residential experience, I don't care how many non-traditional students we have, there will always be a core of freshmen who come straight out of high school, and we need to engage those people very positively in the residential experience, and we will continue to do that. And understand how various components of that fit together: student work, veteran support. There's long lists of these things, just ideas to get you started in the workbook. Financial resources, everybody knows that the state resources, if not in absolute terms, in relationship to the percentage of the total funding for the university, are shrinking. 30 years ago, state resources paid probably nearly 70% of what it cost for an undergraduate's education. Now, and 30% came from other sources: tuition and fees, gifts, grants, contracts, scholarships, and so on and so forth. Loans, a little bit. That's changed dramatically too. Now, that thing is turned on its head. 30% of our resources that are required to operate the university come from the state, and 70% come from other sources. And that has created a culture in higher education that we've never experienced before. And it's led to all sorts of things. So this is a very important set of considerations. Intellectual resources are critical to the future of the university, how computing and information technology works. The library is still going to be important. How it's going to change in 30 years is a good question. It will change. The Panhandle Plains Historical Museum is a hugely important intellectual resource, and while the IT environment houses things digitally, the library houses things in yet another way. Artifacts and artifacts of life in West Texas are housed in the PPHM, and that's very, very important to the future of WT. Cannot be overlooked, and a very important intellectual resource. Human capital, we need to recruit and retain the best faculty and staff. We need to get excellent students. We need to have support systems built for them, for those people, so that we can help them do their jobs well. Research and infrastructure is very important as we move ahead and try to build more graduate programs of substance and quality. And then lastly, leadership and governance and organization, how we come together in various groups to help the university move forward. What is the state's expectations? We are very good at voicing our expectations from the state. We need to better understand what the state's expectations of this university are. And I will tell you, quite frankly, I fear sometimes that the measurable expectations of things like 6-year graduation rates and those kinds of data sets are fueling important decisions that a university makes in terms of where it needs to go and how it needs to serve. And if you take a working single mom with 2 kids that spends 9 years getting a degree and pays for it as they go, we don't pay much attention to a 9-year graduation rate, but I will guarantee you this, that is a win for that mother and the family because of persistence and determination and so on. We need to make sure that we understand the value of that and communicate that value. The oversimplicity of some of these measures actually causes us to take steps and actions that may not best serve the people that we're trying to serve, and we have to be mindful of that. And it's a tall order to do that. It's not easy. We have white papers that are being developed. Those will be published on December 1st. There are various groups working and various individuals working on white papers. There's an outline of those in the book. You'll see them. The data analysis, who are our peers, is a very important part of this process. Blake Decker, who's in charge of the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, Data, and Analytics, has led the charge on this. We have 3 groups of peers: comparison peers, aspirant peers, and geographic peers. And I'll just look a little bit at each one of these, and then we'll be done. Our comparison peers are institutions that are very similar to WT right now. And we looked at many, many variables. They must be in a master's college classification by the Carnegie system. That was that group that we looked at. So we're not comparing ourselves to Texas Tech or Texas A&M or Amarillo College. We're comparing apples to apples. And we have selected a group. I say we, Blake really worked all this out. And I'll tell you, what's interesting about this peer group to me, I would have never picked a single one of these institutions to be on this chart. But Blake has convinced me, the deans, and everybody that we talk to that these really are our peer institutions. Texas A&M Kingsville, not really. Not when you look at the data, and I forget exactly how many data points, but there were many, many, 80? About 80 data points. So stuff that we could measure, we looked and compared, and he used some kind of cluster analysis, which is something that comes from that area where he works in, analytics, and I don't know what it means, but it sounds very important. And he analyzed all this data, and these are the institutions that we're like. Some things we do very well, like our student-faculty ratio right now is not good, though, because it's too high. I mean, we're second to the top in terms of how many students we have per faculty, and others in our peer group have a much higher number of faculty to serve the students they have. And that, by the way, that's not a complaint or anything else. It's just a recognition of a fact. We have to be mindful of that. I'm amazed that we're able to serve students the way we do. It comes from the hard work and determination of the faculty. It's not that there's so many faculty. These are still comparison peers. Student service expenses. Some of these I'm loath to show, but they're all in the book. What this means is Mike Knox's new unit, student enrollment, engagement, and success, needs a shot in the arm. They're underfunded. We're the lowest funded of the peer group. And I guess the University of Wisconsin at Whitewater, they must bring donuts and coffee to the students or something, because look at the size of that. Their budget is 3 times what ours is. So I want to look at all these things and understand how these data points affect what we're doing. And you've got a notebook full of them, and I will guarantee you in almost every theme group you'll be wanting more data points. It's going to happen, and we're going to help you with that. That's the resource person's job. These aspirant peers that we've collected, these are universities that have moved from the master's designation to the doctoral designation in the past 2 cycles. So that's the past 10 years, basically, because the Carnegie rankings come out, or not, they're not rankings, they're size classifications. So they're not ratings, they're not rankings. All they do is talk about size and productivity of different kinds of degrees. These are the institutions that have made, I'll call it a jump, have made the transformation from a master's university to a doctoral university in the last 10 years. So these aren't just universities we picked out of these are universities that have done in the recent past what we want to do in the near future. So looking at them could be instructive for us. That's the logic of these aspirant peers. And just a couple of them, the aspirant peers tend to be larger institutions than we are. If you normalize the enrollments, we're fairly small for that categorization of universities, according to this peer list. You can see that the mean there is somewhere above 10,000 and probably below 11, but it's not critical. It's this comparative kind of look. This is a very interesting statistic to me. These are our aspirant peers, and this is the percent of graduate students enrolled only in distance education courses. We are innovative. We're offering a lot of graduate credit online. What we have to be careful of is getting lazy with the programs that are able to produce these kind of graduate enrollment numbers. Dean Terry from Business, where a lot of this growth has come from, would be the first to tell you, if we get lazy with this, we lose. We have to look ahead, and we are producing a lot of online students, and that's a good thing. But we need to be asking ourselves, what else can we be doing to grow our graduate enrollment? And I think one of the things is to focus on the needs of the Texas Panhandle and this constellation of small communities that make it up. The geographic peers, this is the peer group, some of which would look like what I would expect. And these are literally peers based on proximity to WT. These do include some doctoral universities, and they're institutions that are physically close to WT. These are institutions that students might consider in comparison to WT while they're looking at a college to attend. And as you can see, our retention, this is correct? The fall-to-fall retention rate for first-time, full-time students is below the geographic peer average. How important this statistic is, I don't know. I don't know what the difference means between where we are at something like 67 or 8% and where international is at 10 points higher than that. I don't know what that means even. I hope you guys will ask questions about what it means, and is it something that we should be concerned with? I will tell you that the system offices and the legislature is very concerned with these kind of numbers because people believe, and I think correctly, this is some indicator of performance. It may not be the best indicator for us, but it's something, and we need to attend to it. And my attitude is we could tend to a lot of other things and still improve our fall-to-fall retention rates, but we need to be mindful of that. Tuition and fees as a percent of core ratio. Remember, these now are these are the comparative institutions, and you can see we're right about the average. So students, they're not paying extraordinarily high tuition here. Matter of fact, they pay a fairly low rate of tuition, and it's about average in terms of how much tuition contributes to core revenues. If you look at this data point on the aspirant peers, you'll find out that generally the tuition and fees as a percent of core revenue actually drops off a little bit because there's research and other kinds of funding. You'll be able to sort through all that and see it. Uh-oh. Oh, thank you. All right, now, I know it's not comfortable to ask questions in here. I knew I was supposed to say thank you. Here's the deal. Has everybody looked in the notebook, and is there anyone, you're probably going to be embarrassed to raise your hand, that doesn't know what theme group they're in? John, you don't? Well, come up here and let me embarrass you in front of everybody. No, I'm only kidding. We'll find out. We'll find out. Wade will help you. Anybody else? That's good. Is there anybody in here that doesn't know where your theme group meets? We'll get it figured out for you. So, somebody go help that poor fella. And that's all you need to know. We'll be in touch. Go generate some good ideas and enjoy yourselves. Thanks so much for your commitment to WT. We appreciate it.